The fluorescent lights hummed above the empty desks, a relentless drone that matched the rain hammering the agency windows. Seattle's downpour blurred the city lights into streaks, but inside, the air hung heavy with stale coffee and the weight of what we hadn't said. I didn't come here for her. I came because the deadline was a blade at our throats, and her edits were the only thing keeping my script from bleeding out. She sat across the drafting table, her focus sharp as the storm outside. The tension between us thickened, unspoken, like fog rolling in off the sound. I gripped the steering wheel tighter as the wipers slapped against the windshield, fighting the sheets of rain that turned Seattle's streets into rivers. It was past 10, the kind of night where the city felt hollow, its pulse slowed to a drip. My tires hissed over puddles on the slick pavement of First Avenue, the neon signs from Pike Place bleeding red and blue into the water. I hadn't wanted to come back. Not after the last project tanked, leaving me with emails full of polite regrets and a bank account that echoed. But this client, this script about fractured families in the suburbs, demanded perfection. And perfection meant her. The agency building loomed ahead, a glass and steel box that reflected the storm back at itself. I pulled into the underground garage, the engine's rumble dying to silence as the rain pounded the concrete above. My boots echoed on the stairs to the third floor, each step heavier than the last. The elevator would have been easier, but I needed the burn in my legs to shake off the doubt. What if this was another failure? Another story that fell flat because I couldn't nail the quiet hurts, the ones that lingered like damp air. Pushing through the revolving door, I stepped into the lobby's chill. The security guard nodded from his desk, his magazine rustling under the low hum of the AC. No one else around. The agency was a ghost after hours. Its open-plan floor a maze of modular desks and whiteboards scrawled with half-erased ideas. I rode the elevator up alone, the mirrored walls showing me back a woman in a rumpled coat, hair frizzing from the humidity, eyes shadowed from too many nights like this. The doors slid open to the creative floor, and there it was. The stark, modern interior that always felt too clean, too exposed. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the storm, rain tracing erratic paths down the glass. The space was all hard angles, polished concrete floors, exposed ductwork overhead, pods of standing desks clustered like islands in a sea of blue carpet. A few screens glowed in the dimness, forgotten by earlier shifts, but the air smelled of fresh ink from the printer and the faint metallic tang of overworked servers in the corner. I shrugged off my coat, hanging it on the back of a chair near the drafting table at the far end. That's where she was. Elena. My editor for the past year, though we'd barely spoken beyond notes and revisions. Her desk was a study in order amid the chaos. A sleek MacBook angled just so, stacks of script pages aligned like soldiers, a single black mug with a cooling ring of coffee. No personal touches. No photos, no wilting plant. Just tools for the trade, arranged with the precision of someone who didn't trust disorder. She looked up as I approached, her dark hair pulled into a low knot that had started to loosen, strands framing her face. Elena was in her mid-40s, I guessed, with the kind of quiet authority that came from years of cutting through bullshit. Her button-down shirt was rolled to the elbows, revealing forearms marked by faint lines from endless keyboard hours. She didn't smile, just nodded, her eyes, deep brown, steady, meeting mine for a beat before returning to the screen. "Traffic?" she asked, voice low and even, like the rain outside. Worse. The bridge was a mess. I set my bag down, pulling out my laptop. The truth was, I'd lingered at home, staring at the blinking cursor, wondering if I could salvage this draft. My last gig, a short film about lost connections, had bombed at festivals. Critics called it sentimental drivel. I'd internalized that, let it fester until every line I wrote felt exposed, raw. Elena tapped her pen against the table, the sound sharp in the quiet. She was focused, always. Leaning over a marked-up page, her brow furrowed just enough to show the concentration. I watched her for a moment, the way her fingers traced the margins, precise, unhurried. There was something grounding in it, a rhythm that steadied my own pulse. But I pushed the thought down. This was work. She was the gatekeeper, the one who could save my script or bury it. I settled into the chair opposite, the leather creaking under me. The drafting table stretched between us, littered with highlighters and sticky notes, a neutral zone. Elena slid a revised scene toward me without a word, her handwriting neat, annotations like quiet suggestions rather than commands. I scanned it, feeling the familiar twist of admiration mixed with unease. She saw the flaws I couldn't, the places where emotion rang false. Past failures crowded my mind as I read. That indie script 2 years back, the one about a woman leaving her small-town life. I'd poured everything into it, only for the director to scrap half for being too introspective. Elena had been on that project too, her edits the only part that survived. I'd thanked her in an email, formal and distant. Now, here we were again, the storm sealing us in. She shifted, crossing her legs under the table, and I caught the faint scent of her soap, something clean, like rain on pavement. Her demeanor was guarded, a wall of professionalism that matched the agency's sleek lines. No small talk, no probing questions about why I'd gone quiet on revisions last week. Just the work. The clock on the wall ticked louder now, nearing midnight. The rain eased to a steady patter, the city lights sharpening beyond the glass. Elena straightened a stack of pages, her movements deliberate. I felt the pull of the night ahead, the hours we'd carve out together. As the clock ticked past midnight, work began in earnest. Elena pushed the stack of pages closer, her finger tapping the top sheet. Start here. The dialogue in scene 3 drags. It's telling, not showing. Her voice cut clean through the hum of the fluorescents, no room for debate. I nodded, pulling the pages toward me. The script felt heavier now, marked in her precise red ink. Lines struck through, margins filled with notes like quiet anchors. She didn't hover, just leaned back in her chair, the leather sighing softly, and opened her laptop again. I read her revisions, the words shifting under my gaze. She had a way of seeing the bones of a story, stripping away the fat until only the pulse remained. In the ad world, where pitches lived or died in 30 seconds, that precision was everything. This one was for a campaign on family reconnection, ironic given how fractured my own drafts felt. Elena's changes made the mother character breathe, her hesitation not in exposition, but in a paused breath before a door slam. I glanced up, catching her profile, the way her eyes narrowed at her screen. Methodical, unyielding. The silence settled between us, thick as the rain still tapping the windows. Our keyboards clicked in counterpoint, mine hesitant, hers steady, like rain on tin. She poured coffee from the pot she'd brought, the steam rising in lazy curls, carrying the bitter edge of overbrewed grounds. She slid a mug my way without looking, the ceramic warm against my palm. Black? She asked, already knowing. Yeah. I wrapped my hands around it, the heat seeping into my skin. The exchange was neutral, a ritual to keep the gears turning. No thanks, no small talk about the storm, just the work, pulling us forward. She dove back in, her fingers flying over the keys, rearranging timelines on a shared drive. I watched, awe building, quiet in my chest. Elena edited like she was sculpting, chipping away at excess, revealing shape. On my last project, a spot about urban isolation, she'd caught a line that rang false, a father's apology, too pat. Her fix turned it raw, the stutter in his voice mirroring the city's stuttered lights. I'd marveled then from afar through email threads. Now, up close, it was mesmerizing. The glow of her screen lit her face, shadows pooling under her eyes, but her focus didn't waver. Pass the highlighter, she said after a while, breaking the quiet. Her voice was even, professional. I handed it over, our fingers brushing for a split second. Cool skin, no linger. She uncapped it, marking a transition. This cut works better, builds the tension without rushing. I agreed, though the words stuck in my throat. The unease stirred low, unspoken. It wasn't just the edits, it was her. The way she leaned into the table, sleeves rolled, revealing the faint veins on her wrists. I'd noticed her before, in meetings, the quiet command she held without raising her voice. But tonight, sealed in this floor with the city muted outside, it pressed closer. Attraction, unbidden, like steam fogging the glass. I shifted in my seat, focusing on the page. This was the boundary. Her expertise, my script. Nothing more. The hours ticked on, coffee cooling, keyboards relentless. She pointed out a plot hole next, her pen circling a dialogue loop. The daughter's arc circles back too neatly. Make it ache. Her instructions were crisp, no fluff. I revised on the spot, reading aloud the new lines. She listened, head tilted, then nodded once. Approval, sparse as the rain's rhythm. Silence returned, broken only by the distant rumble of a late bus on the avenue below. The steam from fresh coffee curled again. She'd refilled the pot without me noticing. The scent mingled with the ozone from the storm, grounding me even as my mind wandered. Why did her presence steady me? Past collaborators had been loud, demanding. Elena was different, reserved. Her silences full of unspoken weight. I typed faster, matching her pace, the clicks echoing like footsteps in an empty hall. But the unease built, a low hum under my skin. Her knee bumped the table leg once, accidental, and I felt it through the wood. Proximity in this sterile space felt charged, wrong for the professional line we'd drawn. I pushed it down, focusing on the revisions. The script sharpened under her guidance, but so did the tension between us. We exchanged notes again, her on pacing, me on voice. Neutral words, eyes meeting briefly over the table. The awe lingered, mixed with that pull I couldn't name. Her methodical process wasn't just skill, it was armor, keeping the world at bay. Hours blended, the clock blurring past 1. Fatigue crept in like fog off the sound, softening the edges of our focus. The fog of fatigue settled deeper, but the deadline sharpened everything else. This client was a beast. A national brand pushing a reconnection campaign, their emails laced with ultimatums. Final cut by dawn or we walk, the lead had barked in the afternoon call, his voice tinny over the speaker. 30 seconds to hook families torn by distance, urban sprawl, the grind of commutes that swallowed evenings whole. My script had to pulse with that ache, the quiet regret of missed calls, doors left ajar. Elena knew it better than anyone. She'd shaped campaigns that stuck, ads that lingered like rain on skin. We leaned into the shared drive now, screens synced, her cursor slicing through my latest draft. Here, she said, her voice a low anchor in the cooling air. She highlighted a sequence, the father's hesitant voicemail, the daughter's unopened app notification. Tighten this. The pause needs weight, not filler. I watched her rework it, fingers steady on the trackpad, reshaping the beats with surgical calm. Her expertise wasn't loud. It was the quiet kind. The edit that revealed what was already there, buried under my clutter. She'd caught a similar flaw in a transit ad last quarter, turning a bland tagline into something that echoed in subways for weeks. I marveled at it again. The way she anticipated the viewer's flinch. But questions stirred in me about her walls. Why the reserve? Elena moved through meetings like a shadow, offering insights then retreating. Her laughter rare as a break in the clouds. Was it the industry chew and spit? Years of pitches gutted at dawn? Or something deeper? A guard against the exposure we all chased in stories. I typed a revision, reading it back haltingly. The light from his phone cast shadows on the empty kitchen counter. She nodded, but her eyes stayed on the screen, unreadable. The collaboration pulled us closer, tweaks flying back and forth, her suggesting a cut to the reunion scene, me pushing for one more beat of silence. Her quiet skill guided it, steadying the chaos. My eyes burned now, the strain pulling at the corners, blurring the text after hours of glow. The room's air had turned chill, the AC humming indifferent to the dropping temperature outside, where the storm's remnants dripped from eaves. I rubbed my temples, the cool metal of my rings grounding the ache. Elena noticed without looking up, her shoulders tensing just a fraction under her shirt. The physical toll mirrored the script's theme. Bodies fraying under pressure, connections straining like cables in wind. She reached for a water bottle from her bag, the plastic crinkling softly, and passed it across the table without a word. Her fingers brushed mine again, brief, cool from the bottle's condensation. "Hydrate," she murmured, the first softness in her tone all night. I took it, the chill seeping through, and drank deeply, the liquid cutting the coffee's bitterness. It was a small thing, practical, but it landed heavy in the quiet. Her gesture hung there, unspoken care amid the grind. We pressed on, the timeline a noose tightening. The client's demands echoed in my head. Diverse faces, authentic pulls, no gloss over the hurt. Elena's tweaks elevated it, her eye for the unguarded moment turning my words into something real. But my mind wandered to her guarded edges. What lay behind that focus? A life pieced from late nights like this, alone with screens and silence? The questions built, unspoken, as our revisions synced. The clock edged toward 2, eyes heavier, air colder. My back stiffened against the chair, the room's chill settling into bones. Elena's breathing stayed even, but I caught her stifling a yawn, her hand covering it quick. The toll showed in small ways, her knot fully loose now, hair framing her neck. We circled a final scene, her expertise pulling the arc taut, but fatigue clawed at the edges. Break for stale vending machine snacks heightens proximity. We pushed back from the table, the chairs scraping softly on the carpet. The vending machine glowed at the end of the hall, its hum a faint pull in the quiet. Elena stood first, stretching her arms overhead, her shirt pulling taut across her shoulders. I followed, the cool air brushing my skin as we walked side by side, close enough that our elbows nearly touched. The machine spat out chips and a candy bar, the wrappers crinkling in our hands. Back at the table, we ate in silence, crumbs scattering like rain on the wood. The salt hit sharp, grounding the haze in my head. Proximity lingered, her knee inches from mine under the table. We returned to the screens without a word, the routine snapping back like a worn elastic. Screen sharing became our rhythm now, the shared drive a bridge over the fatigue. I pulled up the next scene, the cursor blinking expectant. Elena leaned in, her breath steady as she took control, dragging clips into sequence. Note-taking followed, her pen scratching across a fresh pad, my laptop mirroring the changes. We marked timestamps, her annotations crisp. Hold here for beat. I typed them in, our tools sinking in the dim glow. The desk lamp cast a warm pool over the pages, pulling shadows long across the table. It was methodical, this back and forth, a dance of adjustments that kept the night moving. Her mouse clicked precise, no wasted motion, while I paused to reread, chasing the flow she'd uncovered. Under the lamp's light, I noticed it then. The faint scar above her left eyebrow, a thin white line like a pulled thread. It caught the edge of the beam, pale against her skin, barely there until she tilted her head. How had I missed it before? In meetings, under fluorescence, it vanished. Here, in this softer light, it spoke of something older, a story etched to quiet. I wondered at its origin. A fall from a bike in childhood rain, or sharper, an accident in some long-ago edit bay. My eyes lingered a second too long before flicking back to the screen. She didn't notice, or pretended not to, her focus on the timeline unwavering. I started cataloging her habits without meaning to, the details piling like notes in the margins. Her pen strokes were precise, each loop deliberate. No smudges on the page. She uncapped it with a twist of her wrist, the sound soft, habitual. Rare sighs escaped her. Not frustration, but release, like air easing from a tire after a long haul. One came now, as she paused over a transition, her shoulders dropping a fraction. She rubbed the back of her neck, fingers kneading the knot there, then straightened, diving back in. These were the small anchors in the night. Her habits, a map I traced silently, studying my own unraveling edges. The tension hummed between us, taut like city power lines strung against the storm. One wrong lean, one lingering glance, and it could snap, sparking in the quiet. But we held it, professional threads pulling tight. I felt it in the space under the table, where our feet stayed clear, deliberate. Her presence across from me was a current, low and insistent, charging the air without a word. I shifted, crossing my ankles, the carpet rough under my shoes. The script sharpened under our hands, but so did this undercurrent, exhaustion weaving it finer. Unspoken empathy threaded through it all, a quiet recognition of the toll. Her eyes, ringed darker now, met mine over a shared clip, holding just long enough to acknowledge the wear. I nodded back, small, the gesture carrying what words wouldn't. We'd both chased deadlines like this, nights bleeding into gray mornings, bodies protesting while minds raced. Her sigh echoed my own internal ache, the burn in my wrists from typing, the fog pressing my temples. No pity, just that shared weight, heavy as the rain pooling outside. It bound us without crossing, her expertise a mirror to my drive, both fraying but enduring. We circled a voiceover line next, her pen hovering, mine typing the tweak. The lamp's light warmed her scar again, a reminder of layers beneath the focus. Habit stacked, her way of tapping the pen once before marking, the soft exhale after a good cut. The power lines thrummed in my mind, the city's pulse syncing with ours. Empathy hung there, unspoken, in the way she passed the pad without asking, knowing I'd need it. As 2 a.m. neared, conversation turned personal by accident. The screen blurred for a second, my cursor hovering over a half-finished line. Elena set her pen down, the soft clack pulling my eyes up. "This reminds me of the merger 2 years back," she said, her voice threading through the quiet like rain easing off a gutter. It wasn't directed at me, more a murmur to the table, but I leaned in anyway. The clock read 1:57, the numbers glowing faint. She'd never volunteered a story before. Always the notes, the cuts. This felt like a seam giving way. She rubbed her temple, the scar above her brow catching the lamp's edge again. We pulled 3 all-nighters straight, pitches for a tech client that kept changing specs. By the end, I was seeing code in my sleep. Burned out hard. Couldn't look at a keyboard for a month. Her words came measured, no drama, just the weight of it settling. I pictured her then, alone in some dim apartment overlooking the sound, the city's hum mocking her exhaustion. Agency burnout was legend here, stories of folks vanishing into freelance shadows. But hearing it from her, the one who never cracked, it landed different, like admitting the rain could seep through concrete. I nodded, the motion pulling at my stiff neck. Sounds brutal. Silence stretched, but not empty. The air between us felt thicker now, charged with that shared fatigue. My turn, unbidden. I didn't plan it, but the words slipped out. I get that. Lost a big script last year. Not just the job, the whole rhythm it gave my days. Felt like drifting in the current, no anchor. Vague, yes. I left out the details. The breakup tangled in it, the lover who'd edited my heart before fleeing to LA. Loss like that left marks, invisible but raw. Elena's eyes met mine, steady, no pity, just recognition. Her nod was small, but it echoed. The room's chill bit deeper, the AC's drone unrelenting. She reached into her bag, pulling out a thin blanket, gray wool, folded neat. "Here," she said, draping it over her shoulders first, then sliding half across the table. I tugged it over mine, the fabric warm from her body, heavy with the faint trace of her soap. Lavender, maybe, mixed with the night's coffee. Our shoulders aligned under it now, the shared weight a quiet bridge. Proximity hit like that, sudden, unasked. Her arm brushed mine through the wool, accidental, but the heat lingered. My skin prickled, not from cold. Under the blanket, my body betrayed me. Pulse quickened at the nearness, a low thrum I couldn't quiet. Why now? The deadline pressed, sure, but this was more. Her presence, solid across the table, pulled like gravity in the fog. I'd watched her all night, cataloging those habits, but feeling her warmth, it shifted everything. My mind raced. Was this the burnout talking, or something I'd ignored in meetings? Her quiet command stirring under my skin. The blanket trapped the heat, our breaths sinking in the dim. I wanted to lean closer, trace that scar with my thumb. But I held still, the lie of professionalism a thin thread. Bodies don't listen to deadlines. They reach anyway. She chuckled then, low and dry, breaking the spell. You know, I once rewrote a tagline 16 times because the client said it lacked soul. Soul, in 30 words. Her tone carried that wry edge, self-mocking without bite. I laughed too, the sound surprising me. Tell me about it. I spent a week on a scene about rain-slicked streets, only for them to cut it for being too moody. As if Seattle ads need sunshine. Dry humor, mine sharper with the gripe. We were the punchline, writers and editors chasing ghosts and copy. Her smile flickered, brief, warming the space under the blanket. It felt like permission, that shared absurdity lightening the load. But the yawns came then. Hers first, a deep pull she stifled with her fist. Mine followed, jaw cracking in the quiet. The words on the screen swam, fatigue claiming the edges. Work paused. The drafting table a temporary truce. The yawns hung in the air like echoes, pulling us both under. Elena rubbed her eyes, the motion slow, her fingers pressing into the skin until faint lines bloomed. She straightened the page, the paper whispering under her touch, but her shoulders sagged heavier now. The blanket still draped our laps, its weight a shared anchor in the dim. I watched her fight it, the way her jaw set against the pull, but the night's toll was relentless. Her pen hovered over the pad, then dropped, rolling once across the table before stilling. She leaned forward, elbows on the wood, scanning the screen one last time. The glow caught the loose strands of her hair, framing her face in soft gold. Her head nodded once, sharp, like a signal to herself. Then again, slower. I opened my mouth to suggest a break, but the words caught. Her chin dipped, eyes fluttering shut for a beat too long. The third nod sealed it. Her forehead met the drafting table with a soft thud, muffled by the folded arms she'd braced under. Time stretched. I froze. My hands hovering over the keyboard, fingers curled mid-type. The room's hum filled the silence, the AC's low drone mixing with the distant patter of rain. Elena's breathing settled, steady now. A rhythm that cut through the quiet. In. Out. Her shoulders rose and fell with it, the fabric of her shirt shifting in gentle waves. Loose hair strands escaped the knot, curling against her neck, dark against the pale skin there. One caught on her lip as she exhaled, trembling slightly before stilling. I couldn't move, not to wake her, not to shift the chair that creaked under me. The vulnerability hit like a cold draft slipping under the door. Her, the editor who carved stories to bone, now unguarded in sleep. Her face softened, lines easing from her brow, the scar above her eye fading into shadow. The table held her weight, pages scattered like fallen leaves around her arm. My pulse thudded low, matching her breath's cadence. Fear coiled in my chest, not of the deadline slipping away, but of this silence. It stripped us bare, no notes or cuts to hide behind. What if she woke and saw me watching, saw the want I'd buried under revisions? Her breath came even, deep from the diaphragm, a sound like waves lapping a pier. It carried through the fog of fatigue, pulling me in. I leaned closer, elbows on the table now, mirroring her without thought. The air between us warmed, carrying the faint lavender from her skin, mixed with the night's coffee bitterness. Her hand lay open near the edge, fingers lax, nails short and practical. I traced it with my eyes, the faint callus on her thumb from endless gripping, the subtle flex as she dreamed. Shoulders lifted again, a slow rise that drew my gaze up, to the curve of her neck exposed where hair fell away. The emotional weight pressed, heavy as the blanket we'd shared. Vulnerability in this space felt dangerous, like stepping onto a rain-slicked ledge. I'd built my own guards, scripts as shields, professional nods to keep distance. But here, with her asleep across from me, the lie cracked. Fear of the silence meant fear of myself, of admitting the pool that started in meetings and sharpened tonight. Her breath fogged the edge of my mind, inviting, terrifying. What did it mean to witness this? To hold the moment without words? Outside, a fairy horn sounded faint through the storm's remnants, muffled in the fog rolling off the sound. Her breathing echoed it, low, distant, a call cutting the haze. It grounded me, that parallel rhythm, the city's pulse syncing with hers. I sat vigil, the clock's tick fading under it. Minutes blurred, the screen's glow dimming to screensaver blue. Her hair shifted with another exhale, a strand brushing her cheek. I resisted the urge to tuck it away, my hand twitching on the table's edge. Reflections deepened as the vigil stretched. Memories surfaced unbidden. Her nod in that failed pitch meeting, the quiet way she'd salvaged my line when others tore it down. Tonight amplified it, her exhaustion mirroring my own hidden fractures. The loss I'd hinted at earlier, the drift after that breakup, felt closer now. She'd shared her burnout, a crack in her armor. This was mine opening wider. Watching her breathe, I questioned the boundary we'd held. Was the attraction just fatigue's trick, or something that had simmered under the agency's fluorescence? Her shoulders fell again, steady, pulling me deeper into the quiet truth. The rain picked up outside, tapping the glass like fingers on keys. I stayed put, the table our divide and bridge. Her breath continued, the fairy horn long faded, but the fog lingered in my chest. Vulnerability bound us now, unspoken, in the hush. Narrator's vigil stretches, reflections deepen. The vigil pulled memories up like roots from wet soil, tangled and insistent. I saw Elena in that conference room 2 years back, the merger chaos she'd mentioned earlier. Lights harsh overhead, her voice steady as she walked us through cuts to a sinking campaign. Everyone frayed, producers yelling, creatives pacing, but she held the center, her pen marking salvageable lines while others drowned. I'd been new then, my first big script handed off like a hot coal. She saved it, quietly, without credit. Now her head rested on folded arms, vulnerability cracking that image. Her scar gleamed faint under the lamp, a mark of some old break I'd never asked about. The flood came harder. Her nod in the hallway after my last failure, eyes meeting mine with no judgment, just a shared weight. Tonight's exhaustion stripped her bare, tying those fragments to this moment, her breath the thread pulling them tight. I questioned it all, the lie we'd built. Pure professionalism, that's what we'd called it. The emails crisp, meetings brief, her edits a wall between us. But watching her now, shoulders slack in sleep, I saw through the cracks. Was it ever just work? The pull started earlier, in stolen glances over drafts, her focus drawing me like a tide. The agency demanded distance, its glass walls reflecting back polished selves, no room for the mess underneath. Yet here, in the hush, the lie crumbled. Her hand lay open near mine, fingers curled loose, and I wondered if she'd felt it too. The current under our exchanges, the way her gestures lingered a beat too long. Professionalism was the script we followed, but bodies betrayed it. Heat rising in silences, attraction humming like the fluorescence above. This wasn't fatigue's trick. It was truth, raw and unedited, staring back from her sleeping face. My body stayed still, a statue in the chair, mirroring the storm inside. The room held its breath with me, air thick and unmoving, while my thoughts churned like the sound in high wind. Heart thudded low, a drum against ribs, each beat echoing her rise and fall. I wanted to trace the line of her jaw, feel the warmth of her skin under my palm, but held back, the internal gale raging silent. Memories whipped through, my own losses, the lover who'd left scripts unfinished, words turning to ash. Elena's vulnerability amplified it, her unguarded form a mirror to my fractures. The stillness amplified the chaos, every nerve alive in the quiet, pulse racing while limbs locked. It was the weight of wanting, heavy as rain on the roof, pooling in my chest until I could barely draw breath. Empathy swelled for her hidden loneliness, the kind that echoed in empty offices like this one. She carried it in her reserve, the way she poured coffee for two but drank alone, her desk a fortress of order against the agency's churn. Nights like this must stack up for her. Deadlines devouring evenings, connections fleeting as pitch meetings. I saw it in the faint lines around her eyes, the scar's whisper of isolation. Who waited for her at home? A quiet apartment overlooking the bay, screens flickering into the dark, or just the hum of the city, indifferent? Her breath steadied mine, a shared solitude in the vigil. I felt it deep, that ache for someone to see past the edits, to hold the unguarded hours. She'd shared her burnout anecdote earlier, a glimpse through the armor. Now, asleep, she offered more without knowing. Loneliness bound us, two women in the grind, reaching across invisible divides. The decision came subtle, born of that empathy, no waking her. My hand twitched toward her shoulder, then stilled. Let her rest. The moment deserved honoring, this rare strip of rawness in our polished world. Waking her would snap it back, the boundary reforming like rain on pavement. Instead, I sat, guarding the quiet, the table our fragile altar. Her hair shifted with an exhale, and I smiled, faint, the choice settling like dew on grass. It wasn't grand, just right, acknowledging her need without demand, the intimacy in allowance. Outside, the sky lightened, a gray seep through the blinds. Dawn filtered in, slanting pale across the floor, reality returning with the first bird call, faint against the glass. The blinds caught the first gray light, slanting it across the table like hesitant fingers. Elena stirred, her breath catching sharp before evening out. She lifted her head slow, blinking into the dim, her arms unfolding with a soft rustle of sleeves. The scar above her brow sharpened in the dawn, a line I'd traced in my mind through the night. She straightened, composure snapping back like rain hitting pavement after a lull, sudden, unyielding. Her hand swept the loose hair from her face, knotting it tight again with quick twists, the vulnerability folding away. No words, just that shift. Her eyes clearing as she scanned the scattered pages, the screen's glow now pale against the window. I sat still, the chair's edge digging into my thighs, my own fatigue a dull throb in my temples. She'd slept maybe an hour, but it showed in the ease of her shoulders, the way she rubbed her neck without complaint. The room felt smaller now, the agency's hush broken by the distant rumble of early traffic on the avenue below. Elena pushed back from the table, the legs scraping faint on carpet, and stood. Her boots clicked soft as she crossed to the coffee station in the corner, the machine's drip starting without a glance my way. 2 mugs, black for both, the steam rising steady, filling the air with that familiar bitter edge. She carried them back, setting one before me with a quiet clink, the ceramic warm under my fingers. Our eyes met then, brief, over the rim of her mug. No mention of the night, the vigil, her head on the table. Just the coffee, a ritual restored, words unnecessary in its rhythm. I sipped, the heat cutting through the chill that had settled in my bones, grounding the haze. She settled opposite again, the blanket folded neat and pushed aside, the space between us reasserting itself. Professional lines redrawn, but softer now, like edges blurred by the fog lifting outside. "Final pass on the reunion scene," she said, voice even, pulling up the shared drive. Neutral talk, masking the hours we'd let slip. Her cursor moved, highlighting the last tweaks we'd circled before exhaustion claimed her. The pause after the call, hold it 2 beats longer, lets the ache land. I nodded, typing the note, my fingers steady despite the pull in my chest. We reviewed the cuts, her annotations crisp as ever, discussing pacing like the night hadn't bent us closer. The client's demands echoed, faint now, the timeline met in the gray light. Her expertise guided it still, quiet and sure, turning my raw lines into something polished, ready. But my gaze lingered, drawn to the way her fingers tapped the mug, the faint tension in her jaw. She caught it, her eyes lifting to meet mine. Uncertain for a beat, the brown depths holding questions she didn't voice. Was it the sleep, the proximity under the blanket, or the way I'd sat through her unguarded hours, watching without waking? The uncertainty flickered, raw under her composure, mirroring the storm still dripping from the eaves. I held the look, letting it stretch, the air thickening again, despite the neutral words flowing between us. She broke first, glancing down at the screen, but not before a small nod, subtle, almost imperceptible, her chin dipping once. Acknowledgement. The boundary we'd held snapped back, but shifted, cracked just enough to let light through. No grand confession, no probing the night's quiet truths, just that nod, carrying the weight of shared exhaustion, the empathy we'd unspoken through the dark. It said we'd seen each other, past the edits and mugs, in the hush. The professionalism held, but warmer now, like rain-soaked earth yielding underfoot. We wrapped the final edits, screen syncing, files saved with quiet clicks. The project pulled taut, ready for the morning handoff. But the connection lingered, a low hum under the routine. Her nod echoing in my pulse as the city woke beyond the glass. The project files uploaded with a final ping, the shared drive sealing our work into the agency's cloud. Elena leaned back, her chair creaking once, and rubbed her eyes under the strengthening light. Dawn had fully broken now, the rain a memory as clearing Seattle skies pushed through the clouds, turning the gray to pale blue over the sound. We gathered our things in quiet motions, her stacking pages into a neat folder, me closing my laptop with a soft snap. No goodbyes, just a shared glance, her nod from earlier lingering in the air like the last drop from an eve. I took the stairs down this time, the echo of my boots on concrete pulling me from the floor's hush. The garage waited below, my car a shadowed shape amid the empty slats. The engine turned over rough, the wipers flicking once to clear a stray bead of water from the windshield. I pulled out onto First Avenue, the streets waking slow, delivery trucks rumbling, a jogger blurring past in neon. The city unfolded, its pulse steadying after the night storm, but my mind stayed back at the table, replaying the vigil, her breath rising and falling. The drive home wound through the emptying downtown, traffic thinning as the bridge arched over the water. Skies cleared wider, sunlight glancing off the ferries, cutting white wakes below. I gripped the wheel, the leather warm under my palms, and let the quiet truth surface. What we'd uncovered wasn't loud. No confessions, no crossed lines. Just her head on the table, my watch in the silence, the blanket's shared weight. It was the kind of intimacy that sneaks in like fog off the bay, settling without notice. I'd seen her unguarded, the scar and size no longer just habits but signs of a life carried heavy. And she'd seen me, in that nod, holding the space without demand. The agency felt like a held breath release now, its glass walls exhaling the tension we'd built through the dark. All those late hours, the crisp instructions and neutral exchanges, they'd been a container, keeping the pull at bay. But exhaustion cracked it, letting the air move free. I turned onto my street, the apartment building rising plain against the sky, its windows catching the light. Parking felt automatic, the engines cut off, leaving only the distant call of gulls. Inside, the space was cool, unchanged. Counter bare, bed unmade from yesterday's rush. I sank onto the couch, the cushions yielding under me, and closed my eyes. Processing it came in waves, like the sound lapping pilings after a tide. The attraction I'd buried under revisions, the empathy in her burnout story. It anchored now, solid as the blanket's wool. No rush to name it, just the feeling of being seen in the grind, two women threading stories from fragments. Hopeful uncertainties stirred about future collaborations. Would the next deadline pull us back, her edits sharpening mine, the silence fuller now? Or would the boundary harden again, professionalism swallowing the crack? I didn't mind the not knowing. It felt like possibility, open as the clearing skies. The emotional payoff landed quiet, anchored in shared silence. That vigil, her breath syncing with the ferry's distant horn, had tethered us without words. In the agency's churn, where connections frayed like old cables, this held. Loneliness eased, not gone but lighter, the weight shared across the table. I stood, moving to the window, watching the city hum below. Rain's scent lingered faint on the air, mixing with coffee from the pot I'd brew later. Elena's departing figure flashed, her walking to the elevator, shoulders straight but softer, the nod a promise in the light. It was enough, for now. Her figure faded down the hall, steady steps carrying her into the morning light, the door clicking soft behind. If you've ever held a silence like that and felt it shift everything, share your story below. Subscribe for more tales of quiet connections that linger.